This is a disclaimer that this video is for informative purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any condition. Please reach out to a qualified mental health professional if you're struggling. Abuse, neglect, abandonment, violence, and accidents are a few of many examples pertaining to trauma. Trauma comes in many forms and can happen at any stage, influencing the way you think, act, and process emotions. These traumas can resurface in ways that we don't immediately recognize. To better understand some of these unknown triggers, we'll be taking a look at 7 of them. Number 1, sensations. Seeing and hearing something that reminds you of your past can certainly trigger a traumatic response. Certain textures, tastes, and even smell can trigger your trauma. Your sense of smell is closely correlated to your memory, which can make you especially sensitive to these stimuli. According to an article by McLean Hospital in 2015, this works in the same way that a scent can make you nostalgic of something in the past, or can bring you comfort, like fresh-baked cookies. Your brain responds to sensations quickly and can create an emotional reaction before you have time to process what it is. Number 2, being with people that are emotional. If you've been through an abusive or neglectful childhood, you may find yourself on edge when someone shows strong emotions. Whether it's someone bursting into tears or raising their voice, you may find yourself growing increasingly uncomfortable. Dr. Janice Webb from Psych Central in 2019 states that this is related to how someone else's emotions affected yours. When another person is getting emotional, you may find yourself bubbling with feelings that you weren't allowed to have. This in turn makes the situation uncomfortable and escaping a priority. Number 3, reactions to certain places and people. Trauma is triggered by memory. Being in situations that remind you of your trauma can be a difficult experience. Any resemblance to your trauma is a potential trigger. People that remind you of someone who's hurt you, or being in a physical location that resembles a bad place can bring unwanted memories. According to the Integrative Life Center in 2022, you may not always recognize this. Talking with specific people may feel off for an unexplained reason. Perhaps they're a reminder of someone from your past. Subtle reminders like the colors people wear, or if their stature is similar to an abuser, may trigger a response. Number 4, avoiding help even when you need it. Asking for help can be incredibly difficult for people that experience trauma or neglect as a child. When asking for help goes poorly in childhood, you may find it hard to do so as an adult. If as a child you were ignored, belittled, or worse, you may hold on to this with other people. You worry about their reaction, or worse, their rejection. Dr. Webb from Psych Central states that having this dynamic between people that you should trust early in life can make it extremely difficult to go to anyone else later. When you're in a situation where you need help, it can quickly bring up feelings of guilt, hopelessness, and worthlessness. Number 5, avoiding conflict at all costs. Conflict is never easy to deal with. If you've experienced a traumatic event or neglect early in life, you may try to avoid conflict at all costs as a defense mechanism. Licensed clinical social worker Sean Grover breaks down avoidance into 3 categories: apologizing, agreeing, and accommodating. You may find yourself constantly saying sorry in excess. Perhaps you're overly agreeable even when something goes against you and your values. Lastly, you may notice that you always accommodate the other person's needs at your expense. You're trying your best to avoid a problem before it even becomes a problem. Despite your efforts to avoid conflict, you may find that your relationships have become unstable, distant, and in the end, lost. The conflict avoidance can escalate to a point where those closest are unable to reach you, making you feel alone. Number 6, the media you consume. The media that we consume has a strong grip on the emotions we feel. TV, movies, news articles, music, and more are all engineered to get an emotional reaction out of us. Sometimes this reaction can be unhealthy and can trigger something deep within. Seeing a similar trauma that represents your own can be detrimental to your mental space and may cause you to spiral. Media doesn't spare you the ugly details, which can make you feel like you're reliving the experience. Additionally, having a focus on dark topics like death, chaos, and violence can make turning to the news at all extremely unpleasant. According to Dr. Jessica Hamblin from the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma in 2019, says media covering these types of topics can put you in a vulnerable headspace, making you more susceptible to negative emotions and thoughts. Sometimes avoiding the news altogether and studying up on a film you're about to watch can be great ways to reduce exposure to unsettling topics. And number 7, time and anniversaries. Traumas are triggered by memories of past events, making any detail a potential trigger. Whether the anniversary of a loved one's death is approaching or the date of a horrible tragedy is coming up, you may find yourself more on edge than normal. Your brain is really good at sensing patterns, so any sign that an event anniversary is coming up, such as seasons changing or calendars moving up a month, can serve as a subconscious reminder. Research from the National Center for PTSD states this is our brain reminding us to be afraid of a horrible event occurring. Dr. Hamblin from the Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma further explains that when patterns emerge that are similar to when a horrible event happened, our brain kicks into gear to get us to safety. While this can help us keep out of danger in some scenarios, in others it's completely unavoidable and consuming. While trauma is incredibly difficult, it's important to know that there is help and a way to heal from it. We can't always be aware when it's affecting us and to what extent, but talking with a mental health professional can make this work much easier. If you've been through a traumatic event, it's important to know that help is possible and that you are not alone. Reaching out to a qualified mental health professional can be a great first step to getting your life back on track. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please let us know your thoughts on this topic in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to Psych2Go to keep up with our uploads.